everyone. Welcome to Tech Down Over. I'm Rick Zanotti, and
I'm Jeffrey Blanchard.
Welcome to the show.
It's Tech Down Over.
And we are back. I guess we should have practiced that, but oh well.
Well, I just gathered that if you say that and do that to me, then I'll say, and this is Take Down Over. I'll have to perfect my American accent to do that. Hey, Rick, I'll tell you what, we get carried away, was talking away before we'd hit the record button, and we thought, hey, hang on, this is a show.
That's right.
We're already talking.
That's right. We're talking all sorts of good stuff. Well, we were supposed to have...
Whenever we get...
Yeah, and we're sorry, folks. We were supposed to have Curtis Judd on today. We don't know what happened. We don't know if he got stuck in something or he's having weather or whatever. But we'll have him on another time. And so even though he's not here, go visit www.learnlightandsound.com. That is his website. And he does a great job of teaching all about lighting and all about audio and sound. So wherever Curtis is, we hope to see him next time. So Jeff, you were showing us a little toy pre-show. Do you want to bring that little toy out again?
Well, let's see if I can.
It's not a little toy, but it's kind of big.
Yeah, this one here, the what's it? The Ronin S.
Wow, it looks huge.
Well, it is, but it's not that bad. It's just more so. I've got the Canon XA10 on it. And it's got the XLR mic adapter. I could have taken that off to make it a little bit smaller. But what I found with it when I did do that, it made the camera too light.
Right.
There's nothing much in the XA10, so it wouldn't balance very well, it said, because there wasn't a lot of weight, whereas that just weighted it nicely at the front. And so I thought, well, I'll put it back on, and it seemed to balance a lot better.
Now, how much does that weigh holding it like you are?
I just don't know how they say it's about. Is it 3 pounds in your way? Is it
3 pounds? Like 1.5 kilos? About 1.5 kilos?
Yeah, I think it's about that. So
that's not bad
with this camera, because the thing is, what you're holding, the big part of the weight is the battery down the bottom. But the great thing with what they've done on here, it's all rubberized.
Okay.
So even the legs, and that's what I love. It's got the legs on it, because how many times with anything you're using, if you have to undo it like a lot of these gimbals and have the frame to stand it, well, you can just stand that down there and put it aside if it does get a bit tiring. But also these legs fold down.
Nice.
And they've got the rubber thing on the legs, so you can hold by that, so you can hold it a bit,
And it'll hold it up, no problem?
Yeah, so it holds onto that really good. But then you can put there's like a carbon fiber stick I found on Amazon.
Yeah,
for an accessory for it to make it there, so do it a bit more for some jib shots. You can
interesting. Yeah, that's really cool
as well. So, and also on the, this is why I've got to get my Panasonic GH5, because it's fully compatible with the GH5. So on there you've got the focus wheel for the Panasonic. So that
really?
The camera.
Really,
and
down
also
there?
And when you're working the Panasonic, the record button then works on that when you've got matching cameras.
Interesting.
They've got things like the Sony, but Sony needs the infrared cord that will make it start and stop, but it's a bit hit and miss if it doesn't get that one there.
Now, will that work on the XA10 or no?
Sorry, no, but then again, when you use it, who cares? It's a video camera. You just switch on record,
and it records.
And like even on this one, on the highest quality with this battery, you get 5 hours worth of recording. So I don't think you don't have to say, well, I better switch that off. There's plenty of room for you to do all that, and you've got the extra memory slots in there. So if you want to do more on that, but I really like the feel of it. It's just, how some things you get that you pay and they're just cheap rubbish.
Yeah.
But this one just really feels like that bit of equipment you want to keep. It's just really nice and very well done. So, and the motors, even though you can't hear them, like people say, like you can't hear them there, but if you record it and listen from the camera, you can still hear them a little bit.
Okay.
Who does proper recording and takes the sound from the camera anyway?
Yeah, not too many.
Very rarely. You'd even put another external mic on and do that, which would cover up that anyway. But if you really worried about sound, you're not going to go through from this anyway. But I thought, and I think I said to you in one of my other posts when I got this, and people say about balancing it. This took me about 5 minutes to balance.
Oh, that's not bad.
And I bought one of those glide cams about 5 years ago. I'm still trying to figure out how to balance it.
We had a glide cam. I couldn't get it to work. I mean, we'd be turning around, the camera's still facing that way, and we're like, no, come follow me.
And like I did, then I'd stop, and then it'd be like an ocean line, whoosh, because it's swing up, and it's all got to do with balance, but I just gave up in the end.
And you realize they have classes with the glide cam. I think you have a class you have to take and pay $500, and they teach you how to balance it. It's like $500 to learn how to balance. Stupid thing. We sold it.
And the thing is, what I like with this is because the glide cam, even if you could. But
Curtis just came in.
Oh, there he is.
Hey there.
Stop talking now. So.
Can you hear us?
Can we? We've got Curtis now. He can see us, but I don't think he can hear us. Don't know if he can hear us. Oh, I can. It's freezing up a little bit. Oh.
Is he frozen right now?
It's just going bit
no,
by
he's moving.
bit.
I think his sound's not coming through.
Yep, sound's not coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah, his channel's turned on, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of like frame by frame. That's what it's going like. Hey, I'm glad I'm not the only one who has problems every now and then. That's good.
Curtis, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, there you are. We hear you now. That was the magic question.
My bandwidth seems really good here, but it's really choppy on vMix, so I'm not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, his video is very choppy.
Yeah, it's like frame by frame.
And usually with vMix, the video is almost impeccable. That's why we're using that over Skype. But we can go in Skype if you want.
Oh no, that sounds dangerous.
Actually, Skype, ever since they went to NDI, we're getting better luck with it. So they've actually, I don't know how Microsoft put NDI into Skype, but they did. It was pretty amazing. What's his bandwidth on vMix?
Well, but I think sometimes it's like everything though. There, Rick. Sometimes it depends on the connection you get. There must be hundreds of millions of connections people can get.
Well, we're checking to make sure we have enough bandwidth allocated.
Where?
Are we at the top?
Okay.
Yep.
We're at the top, so we're full bandwidth on this end for vMix.
It's usually us foreigners that get the short shift of the bandwidth.
Actually, Curtis, you want to try getting in again?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah. So while it's doing that, the same with the what I like with the Ronin is the thing is it's small, whereas all those other glide cams, even if they work perfectly, the big long they get in the way. This one, even though I can take the camera off and I can just stick it in a backpack. It's not the most elegant because the case that it comes with is great. But by the time you take everything to pieces, you've unbalanced everything, and then it takes you 10 minutes to put it back, and then you've got to balance it properly because once you balance it, you can't put it back in the case because you have to slide everything back to the factory sort of resets. But
that's
even
not
then,
fun.
I could just put it in a backpack. Doesn't look elegant, but I just put a bit of Velcro on. One thing I wish it did have was like the Osmo, that you could just lock the points. You know how you just lock.
Oh, you can't do it on this one.
Lock the cam.
Right, because the cam it doesn't know what to lock. Yeah.
But I take the camera off and then I just put a bit of Velcro on the things. Just.
Kurt,
that's perfect.
Curtis, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Yes, and we could see you perfectly this time. It's no jittery, no jitty.
Excellent. Let's give this a go, shall we?
Let's do it.
That's fine.
Well, we started the show about 15, 16 minutes ago. We didn't know if you were coming in, but we did a plug for you, just so you know. So
we did. Yes, that's right.
Learn Light and Sound should have a lot of people showing up soon. So
excellent. Thanks so much.
You're more than welcome. So anyway, how have you been?
Been great. Had had a lot going on. I've been working on some new courses. I have a new course on the Zoom F8N on the F8. So that's been keeping me, that was my big summer project for this summer. And of course, we're still doing the weekly episodes and trying to replace my 17-year-old vehicle at a personal level. So that's been an exciting ride as well. So
that's good.
That's what we've been doing.
No pun intended, right?
None.
Yeah, I've been watching some of the stuff you've been doing. I saw the stuff on the F8, and I've got to tell you a little anecdote. I bought the sound devices MixPre 6 after watching your video. This is, I think, end of last year, and then I sold it. I said, it's nice, but I don't know, it wasn't working for us. And then I went back and I said, I got to buy something different. Now, we had the F8, which I didn't really like that much, at least for what we were doing. And then I looked again at your videos on the MixPre 6 and I went, it can do that? Time code. We need that. I bought it again. So I bought it, sold it, and bought it again. I was just going, that had to be one of the dumbest things I've done in a long time. But we went on a full 2-day shoot of an event, of actually somebody doing training. And the MixPre 6 with the Canon XF 405, perfect. It was beautiful. They worked just like a champ. And then we were sending the signal from an XF 400, another Canon camcorder, across the room probably about 75 feet away or more. And everything was time coded perfectly. So we didn't have any problems syncing things up or anything. The MixPre worked like a champ. It was good.
Yeah, those recorders, both the MixPre and the Zoom F series, are pretty deep products. So if I guess that's one warning I would have for people. If you are going to invest in one, you're going to need to invest in some training. Well, you're going to need to read the manual, or you're going to need to take a training course, or spend some time with it, because it's a very deep product. There's so much you have to know.
Now, forget reading the manual. Take his course. Go online. It's much better.
I didn't want it to be quite that shameless.
No. I'll be shameless for you, because, no, seriously, thanks to you, I went back and realized what I wasn't paying attention to, and I went, oh, darn. I missed that whole part about it. The HDMI out, time code, and that would have not had me sell it originally. You know what was going on? I was selling a lot of cameras, getting rid of just excess gear that we didn't need, and I started selling everything. It's like, yeah, I'll sell this too. What the heck? And then I went, stop. This is not good. Too late. And you realize that MixPre on eBay sold in 20 minutes. We put it up. A guy bought it like that, and I went, wow, that was fast. So he knew what he was getting. I sure didn't. I went back to Sweetwater and said, I'm sorry, I think I need that again. And the guy's like, okay, whatever. So
I'm sure he was happy to sell it to you.
he was happy. He was more than happy, because another 900, whatever, 800 something bucks down the drain. But no, we this time we actually used it well. So it wasn't too bad. I think net sum loss of about $300. I'm not complaining.
Yeah,
it was good. But so what do you think of the assault of the camera vendors with all these full frame mirrorless cameras?
I'm tired. Is what I am. I would say I like full frame, but only for very specific things. I think it doesn't, and they're not necessarily the types of things that I generally do. So if you want that very narrow depth of field look, and you're shooting wide open a lot, that's a really, yes, one of those cameras would be great. I would probably choose the Nikon over the Canon based on what little I know about the two of them. It sounds like the Canon does some funky things, including, I think it does a crop when you're shooting 4K, which is weird.
It does.
Yeah. So,
but it looks nice. At least the pictures look good on it, from what I've been seeing. Sure. At first I thought, and now I'm thinking, maybe the pictures look really pretty. People say the lenses are good, but they're very expensive.
Yeah, they're going to be expensive because it's a lot of glass, because it's a much bigger lens mount. But for me, the Canon, if you just need an APS-C size or crop size sensor, there are other ways to do that with Canon color science. Probably, Anyway, it's just kind of a weird choice that they made there. I don't understand. Maybe it's still that they're trying to protect their higher end cameras. I don't know, but In any case, I limit myself to 2 new cameras a year, and I've already made the purchase for both of them. So I am not going to be buying a Canon or a Nikon full-frame mirrorless.
So what did you get this year?
I got the Panasonic GH5S, which that's what I am using right here.
Oh, okay.
And I also purchased the Blackmagic Cinema Pocket Camera 4K.
No, it's funny. I was going to ask you about that because I think you've got the Ursa Mini. Is it that the one you have?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Ursa.
That's in the background. Yeah.
Right. And I hear a lot of people talking about Blackmagic. They innovate. They do a lot of interesting things. They're never quite there, but the end result is good. It's just getting there is a little tricky. That's what a lot of people say. But on the Pocket Cinema for what, $1,200-$1,300? That's not pretty much a steal for what you get. They said the focus is about as good as GH4, which is sort of interesting. I don't know if that's true or not. But it looks like a darn good camera with a 5-inch LCD display in the back. That's nice. Or OLED. I'm not even sure if it's an OLED. What have you had it yet? Has it come out or?
Well, no. The very first copies are just getting into people's hands. I have not received mine yet. So I pre-ordered, but I wasn't early enough on the list. I wasn't convinced at first, and I put my pre-order in a little bit later. So I think for me, what I definitely understand the criticisms of Blackmagic. I don't feel like I've died and gone to heaven by purchasing a Blackmagic camera. Yeah. So there are issues, but what I do like about them is that they do innovate. They just released their new Blackmagic RAW codec, which is, in the testing I've done with it so far, is really nice. The problem, of course, is that it ties you into doing your edit with DaVinci Resolve. So for some people, that's fine. For me, that's not my first choice. I'm a Final Cut Pro 10 editor.
Okay.
But nevertheless, it's really nice to be able to shoot RAW and not take up 6 terabytes of space just for a single shoot. So unless you're doing a full narrative.
6 terabytes? Is it that big? They're really big?
Well, normal RAW, which was big on the Blackmagic cameras, is really big. They use digital DNG, which is an Adobe format. And it's just huge and difficult to manage and so on and so forth. So this is a lot easier. I can say for sure that the Blackmagic RAW codec is a lot easier to edit. You can download, it's a ton smaller, but it also plays back very, very quickly and smoothly. So you don't have to do any transcoding before you edit. You can just start editing right away.
Oh, okay. That's not too bad.
Nice. Yeah, well, that's for RAW,
so how would that differ from something like, well, okay, you said one thing, it's a lot faster to edit. Because if you have something like a Canon 5D Mark IV with a motion JPEG codec, you're talking, I think it's 255 or 56 gigs for 1 hour of video. It's huge. And the files, they're big. It's just everything is full frame. There's no tweening. It's just basically full frame. Every shot is an independent. Every frame is a complete shot. I haven't edited on motion JPEG, short of some old time stuff I did years ago with After Effects and chroma keying, and that's the only time. But they weren't that big, even still. It sounds like with the Blackmagic RAW, you don't have that performance and speed issue of going through it.
Exactly right. Yeah, and much smaller files. So that's a really neat innovation. And the Blackmagic Pocket Camera, the 4K, is supposed to have that as well. It won't have that at release, but they're looking at adding it shortly thereafter. So it's a system that works. You have to invest. It's just like I talked about with the audio recorders. You have to invest some time if you're going to be shooting with the Blackmagic log film, what they call a film profile, which is basically a log profile. It takes some practice to get that imagery looking good. You have an amazing dynamic range of, they say 15 stops. I think it's probably about that, just from intuition. But it does take a fair bit of work and kind of investing in yourself and training to understand how to get that image looking like you want it to look. So
now you mentioned you're a Final Cut Pro guy. We're actually starting to shift towards Resolve, which is sort of funny because we've been doing Adobe Premiere and After Effects, and we did some testing just the other day of chroma keying some stuff that we shot, and in Resolve it was instant. It just ran as if if it was always shot that way, whereas in Premiere and Premiere and After Effects it was dog slow. And so it's really noticeable the speed that they're putting into Resolve, and tying all the products into one now inside the editor is kind of cool with the fusion and all that. What don't you like about Resolve? Because I know a lot of people, some love it, some don't love it.
I love it for color correction and grading.
Okay.
What I don't love is the editing. And this is only something that, I started on Premiere Pro, and then I eventually started dipping my toes into Final Cut Pro 10 after it had matured. The original version of Final Cut Pro 10 was a rocky start. Everyone knows that.
They left too many features out.
They did. And now I think at this point, feature-wise, my sense is that it's pretty close to Premiere. It can do 99% of what Premiere can do. Okay. So I feel it's good that way. I don't like the audio capabilities in Final Cut Pro 10, but that's because they use this magnetic timeline. The magnetic timeline, for me, is amazing for editing, just cutting video. And the reason for that is I just feel like, especially like in Resolve, and it's probably because I just don't know how to do this, but in Final Cut, I can just take a clip and say, oh, I forgot to put this up near the start after I've done all this other cutting. I can just drop that in and everything moves to the right without any effort whatsoever. Everything just lines up beautifully. I really, really love the magnetic timeline. And until you kind of spend a month with it editing, you don't really understand its value and its, what the attraction is. But once you get it, it makes cutting a lot of fun, and it makes it quick and easy.
Well, Geoff,
Premiere,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go. Okay, I was going to say, yeah. So that's one thing. Fairlight is the audio portion of Resolve, which I really like. I like the idea. I think there's still some rough edges on that one. I think in the new version 15, they've got some things sorted out, so it's actually working a little bit better. But certainly during the beta, there was some crazy stuff going on there where trying to automate individual tracks was an absolute nightmare, at least on my machine. I don't know if anyone else had that same experience, but it wasn't working well there. I think they have some of that sorted out now. So I'm dipping my toes in to Resolve. I will say this, though, when it comes to editing, I still prefer Final Cut Pro just for cutting video.
Okay. And right now, Geoff, right next to you, he's another Final Cut guy.
Yeah, well, as I said, I've done both of them, Final Cut and Premiere, and I try to keep going at Premiere just to keep my toes in the water, as it were. But every now and then I just move something, like Curtis was saying, and then I've lost everything else that was attached to it. With the magnetic timeline, if I've got all these things attached to it, it just moves with it. And the amount of times in Premiere I've just ended up with a blank something and just cuts. I've just done something wrong, and it's so easy to make more mistakes in Premiere. But I sometimes feel with the things people don't like with Final Cut that you just get there and do it, and it doesn't seem as complicated as all the others, so they don't think you're doing the proper editing work. But there's the things that you can do in Final Cut, the time saving, a lot of things, like if you've ever watched Larry Jordan's videos, some of the things he does a comparison when people say Final Cut's rubbish and Premiere's better. He said, okay, well, why does this take 3 seconds in Final Cut and 7 minutes in Premiere to do the same thing? But it said, but people don't see and for proper editors, when it's 5 minutes between 2 minutes makes a huge difference when they're editing and that. But I just think, like, even things like these days, the sound syncing, and I don't know what the Premiere is these days, but just to click on the file and just say, yeah, I'll just sync it. And it does an immaculate job of doing that. Most of the other ones, you do it and you just have to line it up manually, but you just do it and it just aligns really nice. And like everybody, these I was just saying before, nobody seems to have the audio from the camera. You've always got a secondary source of audio. So you used to have to pay, what was it? I think there's a program out there that used to sync all the audio, but now it's just all done through that. But I know Premiere does it as well, but they've improved a lot as well. But it amazes me, a lot of the improvements they keep making on Premiere, they start looking a lot like Final Cut things.
Now it's interesting because Premiere to me it's the first tool I ever learned to edit on right at the beginning, almost when it first came out, and I hated it. I just absolutely hated it. So I was a Vegas guy for, 10 years, and I switched over to Vegas, which was more visual. What I do like about Final Cut a lot is the fact that it is so visual. And so it's, for me, editing, if I'm doing Final Cut, which I don't know that well, I know enough to get a couple of videos out there, but I haven't done a ton with it. It was really nice editing in it. It was so clean. That part I like. I'm finding Resolve more like Vegas, not like Final Cut. It reminds me, I think they borrowed heavily from some Vegas things, cleaned up some stuff Vegas didn't do. And that's, I guess, probably why I like it a lot. And it just, I find the interface a tad hard to read because it's sort of dark with very light gray, and it's like a little bit hard. I wish I had a little more contrast, but other than that, I like it. It seems fast.
And do you know what I really like about Final Cut though as well? And I suppose Curtis does. I bought my Final Cut copy. What's it, about when Final Cut 10 came out? I haven't paid a penny since.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I've had all the upgrades. It hasn't cost me a penny since. I think it was $299.
However, your Mac costs 4 times as much as any PC, so you have actually paid a little bit more.
Well, it doesn't matter. I'd have still bought that and put Premiere Pro on it, so that doesn't come into it. It doesn't
That's
matter.
true.
I'd still be editing on Premiere and paying the extra. But yeah. So. But Curtis, we were saying about the new Blackmagic camera. I thought you might not have had it yet because I thought I saw all the hype when it was announced, but it sort of went quiet. So I thought it can't be out there. But why is it so great? What was what? Because everybody seemed to be, I can't wait for this camera.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I don't know if I would characterize it as all that great.
Okay.
I'm sorry to say this, but I really view cameras as tools, and you know what I mean? It really just comes down to the right tool for you or not, and it might not be the right tool for a lot of people. What I like about Blackmagic design cameras, despite their quirks, I do like, number one, that you can record directly to ProRes, so you can get this very high-quality codec that is very easy to edit. It's easy to get on your computer and edit, and that's beautiful. I like their menu system. I think ergonomically it's very easy to work with Blackmagic.
It's very different, isn't it?
It is. And, you know, like if I go from, and this is not, I'm not here to criticize anyone that shoots Sony. I've got lots of friends that shoot Sony, but making a setting change on a Sony and making a setting change on a Blackmagic Design or Ursa Mini Pro is a very different experience. And I find the Blackmagic way more intuitive. Probably one of the best menu systems on any camera system I've ever seen. So those are a couple of the things that I like about them. For me, the Blackmagic Pocket Camera, it's a mouthful of a name. The Pocket 4K, we'll just call it that. For me, that becomes like a nice second camera to the Ursa Mini Pro. So it's a much smaller second camera. I can put that potentially on a gimbal and be able to probably match the footage a lot easier than I can match the footage between my GH5S and the Ursa Mini Pro. So for me, that's really it. And it is. I mean, I know for enthusiasts that don't shoot professionally, $1,300 seems a little bit more attainable for a lot of people in that category than even a $2,500 Canon full frame mirrorless camera or whatever. So that's a little bit more attainable. And the lenses are going to be smaller. They're using micro four thirds lenses, so that's going to be more affordable to get into some quality glass there as well. So for me, that's what.
So all of your Panasonic lenses will work on the Pocket Cinema.
Yeah, I don't have to buy new lenses.
That's nice.
Use this camera.
What does the Ursa Mini shoot in?
It's the mount. What mount?
Yeah.
Lens mount? It's a Canon EF in my case. You can also get a Nikon mount. Yeah, okay. you can get a Nikon mount. You can get a PL mount, and you can get a broadcast mount as well. So you can change it.
Okay, that sounds pretty good.
I know you're saying that.
Go ahead.
That makes a real good decision to go for that when it fits the glass from your Panasonic series. And I do agree with you a lot of the time. There's a lot of hype about different products, but you've just got to get the product that suits you for the job. I think if everybody went like that, I think the industry would die, really. If only people got only what they needed. It keeps us going when people have to have the latest one. And I think the very clever these days, they usually put just one little feature that you just have to have sometimes that just improves it enough. They've got more, but they won't do that until the next year. So they can switch over from that one. But I saw you did a video on a gimbal for a gimbal. and I was interested. I saw he did that with the GH5S on that, so I was interested to see that because I've just picked up myself the Ronin S, and I wondered, did that one, you know, that was it digital photo DH4? Did that fit? Would that fit the Ronin S on that?
That's a good question. There's some question about that. I don't have the Ronin S, so I wasn't able to test it for sure. The manufacturer says yes, but it requires a little bit of a different way of attaching it. So I'm not sure.
I was going to say all the other ones are cranes have got the round, a round handle. The DJI one doesn't. It's a sort of a flat one, so I don't think it would do too well. So.
Okay, yeah. I think that's going to be the challenge. I do. It was interesting when I produced that video. I got some interesting comments of people saying, "Hey, that is a knockoff. Someone stole the idea from another company that has been making these." So this other company contacted me, and they said, "Hey, they stole our idea." And I was like, "Well, sorry, I didn't know that." And so they are going to, they're working on some new designs and are looking to send out one of their newer designs, which evidently has better build quality and fits more gimbals and evidently does an even better job at stabilization. So we'll see how that pans out.
But I mean, for what people have been asking lately, for $99, it's a no-brainer, really. It's a good idea because everybody wants these handheld, the single handheld ones, but they don't want to hold it single hand. They want to have two hands to hold it. And even if it's not doing any stabilization, but it's just something to hold it, so you've got a bit more support with it there. So anything that does that helps a bit. So I'm getting convinced, even every time I see people doing these reviews of getting my GH5, I've been hanging off, but I think I'm getting tipped over the point. And as soon as Panasonic if they announce their full frame, it's going to be twice as much as the GH5. That'll definitely convince me to stick with the GH5s.
Now, Curtis, here's a rhetorical question for you. Geoff is thinking of getting the GH5. I've got the GH5 and the G9, which I like a lot. You have the I think you have a GH5 and the GH5S now, right? Mm-hmm. If you had to buy one, which would you get, the GH5S or the GH5? They're very different.
I would get, they're different cameras. I would get the GH5S for the type of thing that I'm shooting. So I think the GH5 actually makes more sense for a lot of people. If they're going to be handheld, shooting while they're holding the camera without a gimbal, then the GH5S probably the GH5 makes more sense. What I like about the GH5S is the sensor is just a little bit bigger, and they used a much lower pixel count, so the high ISO performance is quite a bit better. I'm not doing a ton of handheld shooting, and when I do, it's on a gimbal, and so for me, I didn't need the in-camera stabilization as much. So that's if I could only choose one, I would choose the GH5S, and that's probably reflected also in the fact that I've got an Ursa Mini Pro and I've got a Pocket 4K camera coming. I don't need the in-body image stabilization as much as other people do for the types of things I'm shooting. I'm almost always on tripod, and when I'm not on a tripod, I'm using a gimbal with the dual handle. So I've got ways to stabilize other than using that image sensor stabilization. Okay, that sounds good.
Geoff?
That's exactly what I was thinking with those two cameras, and I thought the 5S is perfect for a lot of situations where you want that lower light, and people like yourself, you're never ever going to be just holding the camera by itself, because no matter how good you are at holding it, it's not going to be good enough. You'll have it on a tripod, a gimbal, and that, so you might as well get the S, which has got the better performance, and like you're never going to take a photo with it probably, so who cares about the pixel count for the photo? You've got it for the video. So, but I think for myself, I might get the GH5, not the S, because I want a little for the photo, but I want to handheld sometimes with the stabilization, but it's not for a professional use. I will put it on a gimbal, but I want the best of both worlds. So, and hey, in the ideal world, it'd be good if you could get both of them. But I thought if you've got unlimited funds, yes, you do that. But I would probably get
now Curtis,
5S and something else.
Now, Curtis, the there's all the rumors about the Panasonic full frame mirror. Another one, the full frame mirrorless, which is going to be announced either Monday or Tuesday. I think it's Monday. And it's interesting because this one, some of the current rumors that are out there, and supposedly from good sources, who knows, they're saying it might have about a 40 to 45 megapixel sensor. So they're going big. They're going more after the A7R3 kind of market. And this is something that kind of blew me away. What they're saying about the current focus system, it's going to be exactly what's on the GH5S probably, which is still depth by defocusing, or DFD. And it's just going, oh no, I can't believe they're going to do that. They just, if it's true, they're not going with any kind of phase detect, which is kind of odd. They've gotten better with the DFD, but it's still a little occasionally cranky. What do you think?
Yeah, it's no Canon dual pixel autofocus, that's for sure, and definitely in all the testing I've seen. That Canon has really nailed it. I think they are the gold standard for video. I again, it comes down to a question of what kind of shooting do you do? Do you need something that can autofocus while you're shooting video? For some people, that's really important, and I understand that. If that were super important to me, I'd probably be a little bit more serious about some of the Canon cameras. I would say this, though, the thing that is curious to me about the rumors of a Panasonic full-frame camera is I'm dying to know what lens system are they going to use? Are they going to develop a new one?
God, the rumor says they're using a Leica mount, and I went, a Leica mount? Oh, no.
Oh, good grief. That's not going to be cheap.
I don't know if you ever saw Casey Stern from Camera Conspiracies. He has a little song, and he's got songs and everything. He's sort of funny because he goes, if you use a Leica mount, do you know Leica lenses are actually, made of the best diamonds found in caves by elves way down beneath the earth, and they have to fight serpents and dragons every time they go get some of those. He goes, nobody will be able to afford a full-frame lens for Panasonic. And, the Leica lenses, if you look at, they're expensive. They're $5,000, $7,000. It's like, holy smoke. That's a lot of money for just filming, YouTube videos or whatever else people are filming. I don't think they're going to go with a Leica mount. That wouldn't make any... I was thinking they're going to go with a Canon mount, actually. That's my theory, because they do work pretty well with Canon lenses already on the Micro Four Thirds. I don't know. I guess we'll find out on Monday, but I'm curious. Just curious.
Yeah. Well, their EVA camera uses EF mount, so...
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're right.
There.
I forgot about that. What do you think of that
Canon
one?
Well, I haven't bought one.
You only get two, so...
it looks like a great camera. I said, I'm limiting myself to 2 a year, and the reason I do that actually is a very practical one. Not because I couldn't. I mean, I could find a way to earn more money and buy more cameras, but the reality, from my perspective, is that unless you are magical, I think it's important to stick with a camera system a little while to kind of fine-tune your ability to work with that camera system and get the most out of it. So I think it's a little silly to be buying cameras all the time. And
you're right. And by the way, somebody who has done that horribly over the last 3-4 years, and mostly in our case, it was a tax write-off. It really was. I mean, we were getting nailed on taxes like crazy. And putting 30, 40, 50,000 into cameras really offloaded our taxes greatly. I'd rather give it to the camera manufacturer than Uncle Sam. So, and that's what they do with some of the ways you can offset taxes. But I realized we were just buying cameras for camera's sake, and half of them we weren't using, and or they weren't that good. We bought the whole Sony line, or not the whole, but quite a few lenses and 3 Sony cameras at the end of last year. We sold every one of them. I didn't like them that much. They were okay, but they weren't great. Frankly, we were getting almost as good results out of the Panasonics as the Sonys, which shocked us. And we also used the Canon camcorders for some kind of video shoots. They give really good results. So we said, we're done. We bought a couple of new camcorders. We use them in the studio. I'm using one of them in the studio now. We have some other ones. And we right now have just 3 Panasonics, and we don't really have anything else camera-wise other than some camcorders. So, yeah, I think I've come to that. It's not just silly, it's completely retarded. I'll take it a step further. And you're right, if you don't know the camera system well, you just don't know it.
Yeah, and you can't know it if you don't spend time with it.
Yeah,
No. And I agree with that 100%, because the amount of times when you look at something you've had for a while and if you can't get something else, you'll explore it a little bit deeper. Like I did that with one of my cameras, and I thought, oh goodness, I was looking at a silly thing like doing some stop motion, and I wanted to do something like that. And then I didn't realize that my camera had this feature where you could take a photo and then you move it, and then it has a little silhouette of the other photo, the Panasonics. So it shows you what with the so you know where to move it. And I didn't know that because I hadn't bothered looking at it. But there's so many features. It's like everything we have, the build full of features. A lot of them are just so hidden until you investigate, go into every down menu, take a picture in every different situation. They do such a good job. Like I was saying, I've still got the Canon XA10 on my gimbal, a very old camera, but it's still, like you were saying about Canon, still does excellent focus for video. I thought you can't fault it. I didn't even think about autofocus until I said, oh, hang on, I never even thought about it on that, because it never gave me a problem with the focus to even question about what type of focus it does have. I don't know, still don't know, but it seems to do a great job. I'm finished.
Okay, good. No, I completely agree. And that's the thing is, I think that we all come back to over and over again, you know, all of us that have spent so much money on cameras and camera equipment and lenses, is that, has it, you know, a question we probably need to step back and honestly ask ourselves and honestly answer is, has this improved what I've produced? Does it make a difference to our audience? Does it make it so I can produce more quickly and efficiently without sacrificing quality? Those are all fair questions. And I think if the answer is no, not really, then maybe it wasn't the best purchase, and maybe it's not worth diving in.
Yeah. How many mics do you buy, though? Are you allowed to buy many mics?
Okay, so that's a fair question.
Max, mics are different. I love my mics.
You are. The mics are a little bit different in some respects, actually. It's a good point that you bring up, because the difference with a microphone is that some mics, every mic works well on some voices and not very well on others, from my perspective. And so that's a little bit different than cameras. So that's a little different. Now, someone could easily accuse me and probably be justified by saying, okay, Curtis, and why do you own 30 different microphones? Because I don't really need 30 different microphones. But I guess the way I justify it is I'm an educator and a reviewer, so somebody's got to buy them if we're going to review them. So
I think I'm just slightly behind you on mics, but you know, there's something fun about mics. Like this is one of my new ones, the baby bottle from Blue, and I like it. I don't know why, but I think it sounds pretty good. It's pretty crisp. It's not a bad mic for what, $400, something like that. Not bad. I'm not the biggest fan of Blue, but I like this one. I have the Bluebird as well, which I don't like as much, but this one I kind of like. And then the other one I got, I had to. I've never had a tube mic, so I said, I got the Rode NTK. It's interesting sounding. Do I love it? No, but I like it a lot. And I like to sing at night when I go home, and it's one of my hobbies. And it's a great singing mic. It sounds really clean. You could also use it for voiceover, though it's a little probably too colored for voiceover. It's a little too rich or too warm, maybe over warm for voiceover. But nice mic. And those are the two ones I got recently. And the rest, we have a lot of Rodes. We got tons of Rodes. We have one DPA like yours said. We've got Sennheiser mics and one Neumann and some other stuff. But they're fun. Mics are just a lot of fun.
This sounds like an addict talking.
Yes, I know.
I should say a fellow addict.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. You're right. And again, I think there is a little bit of justification for having more mics on hand, just because of the way they each respond to different voices. And I guess the question is would you actually change out a mic for different people's voices? And if the answer is yes, then maybe they are justified owning multiple. In my case, for example, I have for the location sound work, for sound for film, I have to have a few different boom microphones, because a lot of times I'll shoot two-person interviews. So you have to have at least two. And I invested a while back in the Schoeps Colette MK41. So it's a super cardioid. It's a small boom mic, and it's one that's used a lot in the major motion pictures and lots of TV as well. And it's a beautiful mic, but it sounds absolutely horrible on my voice because of the timbre of my voice. And so I also have a Sennheiser MKH8050, and that one sounds beautiful on my voice. So it's an interesting thing. They're just a little bit different. And then always with mics, there's the one mitigating factor, and I've noticed this. If you have an Aphex, if you've got a PreSonus audio box, you've got whatever amplifier you've got or preamp, boy, that makes every mic almost sound alike on that preamplifier. It's just sort of interesting. So, you know, you could also say if you get a lot of mics, you also need 3 or 4 preamps, because if you want a certain sound, it's not going to be the same on the same mic on every preamp. It will be a little bit different. It's a good point. Yeah, I would say my experience is that probably the microphone makes, I would guess, 70% of the. It kind of has 70% of the influence on the sound.
Yeah.
And I would say the preamp is maybe 30%.
Yeah.
That'd be my guess.
Yeah, you're probably right.
But you're right. I think the preamp does makes a difference as well, for sure.
Yeah, I think I'll take that a step further. The lousier your mic, the better the preamp sounds. The better the mic sounds. So, because I've got some mics that, you know, the cheaper ones, they're not that bad, they're not that good. And then the preamp really takes over at that point. It gives it the preamp sound. But when you get a good mic, then all of a sudden the mic starts shining, and you go, "Wow, that's pretty interesting." And then, you know, people hear you when you talk on a microphone. Then they hear you in normal life. They go, "What happened? Was it an accident?"
Hello, I'm Rick Zanatti.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rick.
That's right.
What's your name?
My real voice is like this. So it is funny how the mics can really color how you sound. And when the people see you for the video, they go, "Is that?" And I've met a lot of DJs throughout the years, and "You're the DJ? What happened to your voice?" It's like, it's the mic voice. It's so interesting how different people sound with the mics versus without the mics. Sort of
one of my favorite reviewers I like out there is Larry Jordan. I'm sure he walks around with the preamp tucked under his shirt. It just looks that lovely. "Hello, I'm Larry Jordan," but I'm sure he does all the time.
Yeah, I've had lunch with Larry. He doesn't quite sound the same in person. So, but he sounds good, but he doesn't have that deep a voice. So
that does a really good job. I like him.
Yeah. That's it. Well, you know what, guys? We are just about, well, we're way over the end of our show, but what the heck?
Like talking to Curtis, don't we?
Yeah, we haven't seen you in a while, Curtis. It's so we're so glad you could make it.
It's my pleasure. I apologize. It's been, schedule-wise, it's been a little tricky. It's been a crazy summer.
No, we understand that too, and you know, work is important, and of course, personal reasons. Nothing you can do about that. You have kids. You have teenagers, right?
I have a 17-year-old daughter. Yeah. And
so we know. We know.
Yeah, you understand.
I have a 28. Mine's 28 now, but at 17 it was rough. So
yeah, schedule-wise, it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of schedule stuff too.
There's a lot of things. We used to be soccer dads. It was always at the fields every week and more, and practices. And I got cajoled to becoming a coach, or at least an assistant coach. And it's like, I don't have enough time in a day for all this, but it was fun. But it really cut into the day, and you had to juggle. And the few times I didn't show up, they go, "You never show up." I never show up. I'm there every single weekend. I never show up, huh? No. Yeah,
but I suppose, Curtis, it's one of the things where you pretend you don't do any video filming, and Mike thinks, "Oh, your father can film this."
Yes.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's happened. It has happened.
Well, Curtis,
or they say things like, "Oh, you can teach me how to use my, such and such camera. I've never touched the thing before."
Yeah.
It's like, well,
yeah,
maybe.
it's fun. I used to be the guy who used to hang out with the photographers with the big Canon zoom lenses on the field, taking shots. Like, "What are you shooting? What are you doing?" I was one who liked what they were doing, and they're like, "I got the Canon 5D Mark II or 3, and these guys were shooting like crazy. It was fun." But anyway, we are at the end of the show. Curtis, as always, a great pleasure having you on. And if you want to find out more about Curtis, take a look at our show notes below, www.learnlightandsound.com, and visit he's got 2 channels for podcasting, but they're both, one's called Curtis Judd, and I think the other one is Curtis Judd Video?
Audio, yep.
Audio. One is audio, and the other one is just Curtis Judd. Good stuff. Great material on there. He puts out a lot of free material, and believe me, it's worth its weight in gold if that's the kind of gear you're looking at. And we do many times, so it's really good stuff. So take a look at what he's doing and enjoy the work. And he's got a lot of new classes that he also sells the training for. They're really good. So I am your shameless plug for the day. Don't worry about it.
Thanks, Rick.
My pleasure. It's hard to push you to plug yourself. I know how that feels. So but no, we're fans. We love what Curtis does, and he's a good guy. So anyway, well, have a good weekend, everyone. Enjoy yourself. Next week, we will be back with another episode. And Geoff, we'll see you next time.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good one. Bye-bye. Thanks.